We can now go to Brussels and join a man who's had front row seats, you might say, since this crisis broke out last November. He's Ukraine's ambassador to the European Union, Konstantin Yelisieiev. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Is Vladimir Putin bluffing? Is Russia really going to invade eastern Ukraine?
Yes, good afternoon. Currently, Ukraine suffers from four types of Russian aggression: military, economic, information, and energy. And of course, the situation is very difficult, and Russia is trying to exert huge pressure on Ukraine with a view to prevent internal stability in my country, with a view to disrupt or at least challenge the legitimacy of the upcoming presidential elections in Ukraine.
So for you, the idea is to disrupt the elections, it's not to invade?
I don't know about the plans of Moscow, but what they are doing, they are preparing the possible invasion on the territory of Ukraine, like they did recently vis-à-vis Crimean Peninsula. And still valid recent decision taken by the Russian parliament about allowing President Putin to use Russian armed forces in the territory of Ukraine. So that's why this is a legal basis for Vladimir Putin to invade and to make an act of aggression against independent country.
Ambassador Yelisieiev, if there is that invasion, the fear voiced is that it'll just be a repeat, as you just mentioned, of Crimea, a situation where Europe won't have your back. Does Europe have your back?
Of course, we are very much grateful to the European Union, in particular, for their help to Ukraine. But we do expect that EU will do more actions with a view to, first of all, prevent act of aggression, and secondly, to punish the aggressor. So that's why we are very much in favor, the European Union, to adopt a new set of restrictive measures against the Russian aggressor. And secondly, we do hope very much that the European Union will continue to assist both financially and economically to Ukraine to overcome current financial and economic instability in Ukraine.
Tighter sanctions? What sanctions?
You know that recently the European Union leaders clearly declared that they would be ready to go ahead with the so-called third phase of sanctions, which would include trade, energy and economic pressure on the Russian Federation, provided there is no de-escalation of the situation in Ukraine. What we are seeing currently in Ukraine, there is no stabilization of situation. Of contrary, there is an escalation of situation. There are a lot of acts of provocation inspired by the Russian special forces. That's why, in our view, there is a high time to continue with decisive and resolute actions from the international community vis-à-vis the Russian Federation.
Said many Ukrainians are complaining that the European Union doesn't have the stomach for this fight. They're not expecting the EU to raise the sanctions list.
In this regard, we do need 100% of solidarity of the European Union vis-à-vis Ukrainian people. Because the European Union and the European, first of all, citizens should understand clearly, if there is no peace in Ukraine, there is no stability in Ukraine, we cannot speak about prosperity and well-being of the Europe as a whole. There is a clear-cut interrelation between stability and peace in Ukraine and the prosperity of the European Union.
And so far, that's we're going to see how that pans out. One final question for you, Ambassador. When you think back to November, when the then President Viktor Yanukovych backed out of that pact with the European Union, when you see all that's happened, do you feel as though it was worth it, the ouster of Viktor Yanukovych, when you see the fact that Crimea has been taken over, when you see what's going on in eastern Ukraine?
You are talking about the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, as I understand.
Yes.
Yes, Ukrainian side is very much determined to sign this important deal. You know that a couple of weeks ago, the EU and Ukraine signed the political part of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, and we do hope very much to sign the remaining part of the agreement, namely related to the deep and comprehensive free trade area, just after the presidential elections. It means after the 25th of May this year.
All right, Konstantin Yelisieiev, many thanks for joining us live from Brussels.
Thank you.